Well, greetings Earthlings. I'm here with my favourite book, one of my favourite books, The Dharma Bums by Jack Kerouac. This is my copy that I bought probably in the late 80s, early 90s. As you can see, it's quite yellowed. It smells amazing. The lignin's breaking down in it now, so you're getting that nostalgic, warm, second-hand book smell out of it. I've probably read this physical copy, multiple times. I just found a phone number in the back of it. Should I ring that? I just want to talk about this book a little bit because it'll make you want to pack a backpack and head to the hills, specifically Matterhorn in California and Desolation Peak in the Cascades, the Northern Cascades in Washington State. There's many themes in this book, and a lot of people consider it a book of spiritual enlightenment. But to me, it's a hiking book, and to me, it's a book about friendships. It gives off such a great warm atmosphere of friendship and understanding. So this is my copy. It's written by Jack Kerouac, like I said. It's first published in, my page just came out, first published in 1958. My copy is a 1994 version, which must have been the first time I read it, 1994. I feel like I read it a lot earlier than that, but there we are. It was published just after On the Road, which is Jack Kerouac's most famous book. But I think the Dharma Bums is so much better than On the Road. On the Road obviously has massively been influential and celebrated. It's semi-autobiographical, like most of his books. It follows his adventures in California, both in San Francisco and Seattle, and I don't think it's in Seattle, but it's based kind of in and out of the cities as him and his friend Japhy, who is based on a real character called Gary Snyder, who's a well-known, I'd say he's a well-known outdoors poet. If you want to look at his work, my favourite is Rip Rap and Cold Mountain Poems. That's Gary Snyder. He's an ecological, outdoors type of writer. Really great. I mean, it's kind of a series of snapshots of their lives. Hitching, driving, climbing mountains, meditating, drinking too much wine and talking about Buddhism under the stars. And to me, it's always been a hiking book and a friendship book. And it influenced me to hike out to Matterhorn when I was, 25. Failed to get up there because I didn't know there was snow because the internet was only very young then. And also I hiked up Desolation Peak, where at the end of the book Jack spends his time at a fire lookout. So it's a very warm, sometimes funny, sometimes bittersweet friendship between Jack and Gary, or Ray, I think it's Ray he calls himself, and Japhy. Two young guys trying to work out life, having fun in towns and cities, doing a lot of writing, and then having extended trips out into the backcountry, climbing mountains and sleeping under the stars. Japhy's a kind of, I got some notes here, I'm just scrolling through. He's kind of a wild, barefoot Zen poet who quotes Chinese philosophers and is very experienced outdoorsman, like always described as a goat on the mountains. Well, Ray, he's kind of, you'd call him like a reluctant spiritual, not reluctant, but he has a Catholic upbringing, and that sort of reflects, those sort of values also reflect into his Buddhism. But he liked to drink as well, and he liked to party, and he loved like the spontaneous version of his life. So they were different characters, but they respect each other in a lot of ways, a lot of different ways. They respect each other's differences, and they both like try to learn from each other. I mean, there's one point where Gary says to Jack, "You've introduced me to the language of the working man in America." So he if you read Gary's work, it's very as well as being outdoorsy, it's very spiritual and through Eastern philosophies, I guess. Quite stoical as well. So they bring to each other qualities that they're both looking for, and they both seem to need from each other. And they click, they become good friends. And there's loads of examples of this. So when they're first out in California in the Sierra Mountains going to climb Matterhorn, Ray is struggling. He's wheezing behind Japhy. Japhy's skipping across the boulder field like a goat. But Japhy's not an impatient man. He's patient, he's kind. He waits for Ray. He encourages him, cheers him on, and together they climb higher and higher up to the mountain. And then they stop and have a lovely campsite and fire under the stars. And also there's another character with them called Henry Morley. I'm sure he's an autobiographical figure as well, but I've never looked into who he was. And he really annoys Jack with his kind of forgetfulness and clumsiness. But then at some point he realises the sweetness and innocence and good-natured personality of him as well, and that gives way to like an affection that really comes through in the book. So it's such a great atmosphere between the three guys, and especially between Gary and Jack. And one of the touching parts of the Dharma Bums is the way the friendship is shown as kind of a spiritual path as well as just a hike. It's also a spiritual path. They have a kind of contemplative, quiet joy in each other's company. Whether they're in a cabin in the city reading poetry, Eastern poetry, whether they're just cooking beans or whether they're just sitting in silence on a mountaintop. And there's a quiet joy between them. It's very well. It comes through very, very well in the book. I got a note here in one of the scenes. Ray watches Japhy meditate and thinks he's doing it right, he's really free. And it's not envy, it's admiration. I don't know how often you see that in a book of admiration between male friendship. There's no competition or that sort of male fraternal one-upmanship and it's quite difficult to say what I'm saying. And there's one scene where Jack is watching Gary meditate and he thinks he's doing it right, he's really free. And it's not envy, it's admiration, really respects and loves him in a way, and it's rare to see that kind of fraternal friendship between men in books, I think, isn't it? Really just great atmosphere. And then the other side of them is they like to party too. Life in the city. They they share a cabin for a while. They go out to poetry readings. They drink a lot, smoke a lot, and their path seems to start to diverge. But there's a kind of an unspoken bond between them, of shared experience of hiking and that spiritual contemplativeness, is that a word? Spiritual contemplation. There's a quiet contemplative agreement between them, I would say. And that's a mark of a real friendship, isn't it? You don't need to talk every day, you don't even need to agree on everything. But when you do connect, it's like no time has passed. And that's the sort of great theme that comes through from this book. Apart from the obvious narrative and themes. That underlying atmosphere is always there. And I've always enjoyed it ever since I was younger. Really, just such a great book, and I've read it so many times. And also, I'd recommend, if you want to get the spoken word version, it's read by, I think it's read by Ethan Hawke. Really good version of it. So a little bit of a rambling video this. Sorry about that. I didn't really put much together for it. I'll think about it. It's just something I've been thinking about lately. Should you read the Dharma Bums? Yeah, absolutely. It's a book that's like a conversation. It meanders like a hike, and it glows with real human connection. It's not perfect, of course. You know, Jack Kerouac style is not everyone's cup of tea, and some of the language is definitely aged. I mean, this book kind of illustrates that, you know, life is a bit messy, friendships are a bit messy. Captures that perfectly, really. So if you've read Dharma Bums, drop a comment, tell me what you think about it. I just really wanted to talk about like that nature of friendship that comes through it, and the joy of shared experience, especially when hiking out in the outdoors. And I just remember hiking on the PCT and the feeling of shared experience. You would meet hikers who you've never met before, but you know you're 1,500 miles in, you don't need to explain to each other. You all understand that shared experience of what you've done and what you've been through. It's a great feeling of understanding, and I like that word, fraternity. So yeah, I hope this video's alright. Get a copy of Dharma Bums or get the audiobook. Alright, speak to you soon.